Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's Baltimore Comic-Con Online live. John Sutter's here from the Word Balloon Podcast. We have got two-thirds, and we're expecting the other third to show shortly, of one of the best books of the 80s and 90s, guys that reinvented the superhero team and brought new life and energy to the genre. I am happy to welcome J.M. DeMatteis and Kevin Maguire, two-thirds of the Justice League BWA era. Gentlemen, welcome.
I'm waiting for the applause. Where is it?
It's
waiting, Dan.
Got to do my radio stuff there. There you go.
First, guys, I want to complain about my hotel room. I'm not very happy with the hotel room they gave me this year.
Hey, you can see my bathroom in the background. What are you talking about, man? How do you think I am? Good Lord. So it's
Kevin, you look very like a ruler. You're sitting on your throne and you're about to issue some proclamation. You look very very august.
I'm just trying to figure out what the hell's going on here.
Yeah.
Well, we all are. That's all right, man. It's great to see
doing something like this.
It's great to see both of you. Truly excited to talk about this incredible landmark book. I mean, Mark, take us back to the beginning, because I'm assuming, maybe it started with Giffen. I don't know. But I know it was coming out of a couple of years before that. We had the incredible gritty time of Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen and, Crisis on Infinite Earths. A lot of heavy shit going on. And then all of a sudden there's this bright new day with Justice League. How did it start?
I'm tempted to just make stuff up because we told this story. So the first story I came up with was
weird stories. Giffen has to come in and fill in the blanks later. Just throw him off.
That's right. Keith actually had been blacklisted from comics, and at that point he had a little hot dog stand right outside of DC. Andy Helfer happened to be walking by one day and saw him and said, "Hey, you should come back to work." And that's really how it all started. How did it really start? Basically, it started with Keith and with Andy Helfer. We always have to say this right off the bat. Andy Helfer was a hugely important component of the book. He was the glue that held it together. He was the one that put all these disparate parts together that no one else would have ever put together. As you said, they had just, I guess it was out of Legends. Was it Legends, Kevin? That was yeah. And they were rebooting everything in sight, something that we haven't seen since.
Never.
So it was a very unique situation, and so Keith was originally going to write the book himself, but he'd plotted things, but he hadn't done a lot of actual writing. So he was intimidated, I think, and didn't really want to do that. So Andy, gave me this basic first draft that he had done of the first issue, saying Keith doesn't think he can do this. And I had been working with Andy. Well, Andy and I knew each other for quite a while, but I'd been working with him on the end of the previous Justice League, the JL Detroit. He hired me to basically knock them all off, at the end of that run. So he wanted me to come on and do this. And I looked at what Keith had done and I said, "You guys don't need me. Keith is great. He's fine just the way he is." That argument went on for some months after that. "You don't need me. I don't want to do this. Don't make me do this. I don't want to do this." And then it evolved into like the greatest gig ever once I just kind of relaxed and had fun. And so Andy pulled me in, and Kevin was just a mystery. I had never heard of him, And you can take it from there, Kevin.
I was doing art corrections at Marvel, was one of the Bermuda Raiders, and Kurt Busiek saw my work. He was pitching a book called Wild Card for Andy Helfer, and I penciled the first issue of that. I still have the whole issue of that. I still have all the pencils for that whole issue sitting in like a drawer somewhere. And I was cocky enough to, and so I don't know how it happened, but someone at Marvel saw it and offered me Silver Surfer, starting with #1. And I was like, I was like stupid and cocky enough back then. It's like, yeah, I can do 2 monthly books, no problem. So I was like, well, I'll do both. I'll do both. And then Helfer in his wisdom was like, if you're going to do 2 books, do them here in this office. We've got this Justice League thing we're starting up. Maybe you would be good on that. And I was talking to Fabian Nicieza, who was working on staff at Marvel, and I was telling him, I got offered Silver Surfer, and then Andy counter offered with Justice League, and Fabian's like, oh no, Justice League, you get Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and Green Lantern, and I get the book, and it's like Blue Beetle and Guy Gardner, and I'm like, oh, who are these people? I don't know who these people are, which worked out well.
Yes.
We're definitely much better off having characters that nobody really cared about.
It's much better to have B-level characters because no one else is invested in that. No one else at the company is looking over your shoulder and telling you can't do that with Blue Beetle or Booster Gold or whoever it was, you know? And so that gave us the freedom to essentially, with Andy's kind permission, do whatever the hell we wanted. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, wasn't it also, as you were saying, things were being rebooted? So, and I've seen this happen to other Justice League runs subsequently, where you can't use character A because we're doing something special with them. And that was happening with you guys, where, you know, John Byrne was in the middle of, you know, kind of rebranding Superman and Wonder Woman with Perez and stuff. So you're given this opportunity with other B characters and this very unlikely group that and you know, yeah, I mean, it's a great chance to kind of give them the personalities that they never had before.
Yeah, and we were, I guess it was Denny who had the kindness of soul to allow us to have Batman in the book, because if you look at everybody else, there's like all these other characters and Batman, you know, it's like so that you know, even, you know, back in my earlier days at Marvel, I wrote the Defenders for like 3 years, and just about every character I pulled in was a B-level character because I loved them, but they were characters that nobody cared about, so you could transform them into anything you wanted them to be, and that's you know, you want.
That's what impressed me about what Tom King has been doing nowadays. He takes these characters that nobody's doing anything with, and then makes something out of them. And I think that's more impressive than doing yet another Batman or another Superman or another Wonder Woman.
Right. No, you're right, man. It's always the creators that, you know, dust these characters off and give them great stories. And Kevin, it's really interesting. Am I right mentioning also, Mark, the Defenders? Were you also when you guys when they did the Bwahaha, were you doing that Defenders little thing that they did? Were you the artist on that? Because hearing
miniseries,
you're talking about the miniseries that the three of us did?
Yes, decades later. It was Kevin.
Yeah,
okay.
Kevin,
I was surprised because, well, you obviously were handling the Surfer then later, but it's interesting to hear that you were, you know, contemplating a Surfer at that time. Because again, prior to you handling him, I would always think of him as a stoic character and not someone that would have a lot of great expressive emotion. And that always seemed to be a hallmark of, you know, your art and everything, was the facial expressions and the character that was conveyed from, you know, their emotions.
Well, in the Defenders thing we did, the only thing the Silver Surfer did was hang out on a beach the entire time.
That's right. One page per issue, pretty much. But I have to say, if you want donors, I'll say two things. Just one, you know, I'll always have to say this at least once in every panel. No one does acting on the page the way Kevin does. I don't know where he got it from, where he came from. He appeared fully grown and did this brilliant stuff. And had he not drawn that book, we wouldn't be talking about it today. So we'll get that out of the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, give us the secret sauce, Kevin.
But the Surfer, you got to go back. John Buscema's Surfer was very expressive. He was always doing those Lord Byron poses and all that stuff. So there was a lot of emotion and expression in the Surfer.
I guess his confusion that you conveyed later with the Surfers and stuff is what made it cool. So yeah, I mean, you know,
I would say bemusement.
Okay,
bemusement.
All right, fair enough, man.
Right.
It's in your hands, absolutely. Kevin, where did that emotional expression in your art? Where did it come from?
Well, I lead a troubled life, and I've always been into acting and improv and stuff like that. So I always approach all these things as what are the characters feeling at that moment, and how does that manifest itself? Just not only, you know, facially, but with body language. And it just to me, it's not something I thought about or tried to cultivate. It just seemed like, why isn't everyone doing it that way? It just seems logical.
Well, it certainly fit with what Mark and Keith were doing in terms of the dialogue. I mean, that's the great thing. And, you know, was it always meant to be a crazy humor book, Mark?
No, No. We there was no like grand plan. We always like to say not only was there no grand plan, there was no plan. I didn't know what I was getting into. Keith would do the plots. They would show up at my door. I'd look at them and I joke, but it's pretty true. I would write the first thing that came into my head, send it off to Andy, and he would, and that would be that. But Keith, by his nature, he was always slipping bits of humor into the plots. And the way our writing collaboration worked was I would pick up on when he did and then build on that. He would look at what I did in the dialogue, build that into the next plot, So he would take some situation, and I always joke, but it's true. And my job was to take a big hammer and beat the thing into the ground, Take it one good joke and repeat it 100 times, Take the page and fill it up with as much dialogue as I possibly could without giving the letter a complete nervous breakdown, But it obviously became a very dialogue-driven book. But there was no plan. We never said, "Oh, we are reacting to the very serious superhero stories that are out now, and we're going to do a lighter book." And it just evolved that way naturally. And you find it through your collaboration with each other, and you find it through the characters themselves. And I always say it's like the characters are ultimately the ones that lead us. We didn't say, let's turn Beetle and Booster into this great comedic team. They started talking on the page, and oh, that's pretty good. Let's do more with them because they have great characters, have chemistry the way people have chemistry. And they click or they don't click, and Beetle and Booster click. So we followed them, and that created the whole Beetle and Booster thing. So no, the humor was not planned. It just
I don't think there was anything funny in the first issue.
No, it was maybe sort of a little more arch sarcastic, maybe, well, not flat out funny. Was One Punch in the first issue, or was that later?
No. Which issue was it, Kevin? Rather 5. Yeah, absolutely. And someone actually,
I know.
There you go. And
the terrorists take over the UN.
Right. That's right.
It didn't really seem like there was any sort of interaction between the characters. It was more like just a setup, really.
Yeah. So it evolved, and then the more we saw who these guys were, and the more, Keith would set up these situations and I would start them blathering on the page, and then Kevin would bring them to life in this incredible way that he did. It all just sort of happens. You can't plan something like this. You just can't. It either happens or it doesn't, and it just kind of happened.
Because if they could plan it, they would.
Right, that's right.
Here's an interesting question. Is that Bat Freeze? It is. Guys, were you worried about disrespecting the characters' creators, like Steve Ditko, who created Blue Beetle, for example?
No, not because. Go ahead, Kevin.
No, I'm kidding. I was like, every minute I was hoping to God I was going to insult Steve Ditko.
Kevin really disliked Steve Ditko. He couldn't wait to disrespect him.
No, I don't think anyone was trying.
Because we weren't treating the characters, and we weren't mocking the characters. We loved those characters. It was a different interpretation. If it was like a book where we were like mocking these characters and trying to drag them down, you know what I mean? But that wasn't what the book was about. It was about having fun with them. It was about, in many ways, to me, I think, making them even more real, because I think the humor makes the characters more real.
I always thought that it was like a baseball team, that when they're in the field, they're serious, they're doing their job, but when they're in the locker room or in the bar afterwards, that's when all the character dynamic and funny stuff happens.
Keith always used to liken it to, remember Barney Miller?
Yeah,
of course.
And all of Barney Miller took place in the police station, not when they were out running around and doing police work. It was all that other interaction. And again, that wasn't what we set out to be, but that's what it evolved into when we saw that the best moments were just the character moments, the interactive moments. And yeah, we would do our periodic big action beats and everything. But the most fun we ever had was just having the characters sitting around talking to each other.
That's one of the best parts of the book, absolutely. Or like you said, I mean, everyone remembers Guy Gardner, One Punch, that just challenge, and Batman being the ultimate straight man for this group. Yeah. And just, it really, everything really just fit in. And then all these other interesting things like Dr. Light, the Asian Dr. Light, and
who lasted what, 2 issues? Dr. Light was there for 2 issues. I have to say, John, I still to this day have no idea how they chose the characters, because I came in and they handed me a plot, and I don't know whether it was
Legends.
What?
Didn't they come out of Legends?
Did they come directly out of Legends at the end of that? I don't know.
The end of Legends was the first time you saw that group assembled.
Okay, but so somebody somewhere said, let's use these guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
It wasn't our choice, you know?
Yeah.
No, or Black Canary without Green Arrow. I mean, things like pre-Birds of Prey. So I mean,
Right.
yeah, for a younger audience, they may not realize that a lot of these characters, this was really their first big moment where there was a lot of focus on them in a different way. And also, my favorite little thing, Martian Manhunter's addiction to Oreos. Where the hell did that come from?
It was the way these things work. I would imagine my vague memory is, and if Keith was here, he would correct me, wouldn't you, Keith?
Yes, I would.
He's going to show up like 5 minutes before the end of this thing. Did it start yet?
I called him this morning, so I said, "So do we just phone in?" I said, "Keith, it's not a phone call; it's a video thing." Yeah. Anyway, what the hell was I saying? Oh, right. So I might have had thrown something in the dialogue where John mentions that he loves Oreos. There would be something thrown in there. Keith would see that and then start to build on that, and then before you know it, it's a full-blown addiction. Or one of my favorite things was, I think it was in the big Despero storyline. Over several issues, I had Blue Beetle running around talking about, oh God, I'm really out of shape. I'm eating too much. I'm gaining weight. I can't. And then a few issues later, I open up the plot, and Keith now has him like weighing like 190 pounds or 200. Well, he was fat, bursting out of his costume, And so I would throw in something in the dialogue. Keith would build on that, or vice versa. I would find something in Keith's plot. Oh, he mentioned an Oreo cookie. Well, why don't we do this? And it would just build that way.
It's like comic book improv. It's like you guys were yes-handing each other.
It really was. It was completely that way. And the great thing about working with Keith was, because I've worked with other people where I've dialogued their plots, and some people are very, very territorial and very uptight, and they want you to execute their vision. That's not what this book was. Keith was free to do whatever he wanted to do, and I was then free to take that and spin it in any direction I wanted to spin it. And he always loved that, and then would take that and run with it, because that's the way Keith is creatively. He's very spontaneous. Incredibly spontaneous.
We're already getting some amazing questions, and I want to ask, this is a great one. Any blowback from the Church of Scientology about Elron? Indeed.
It's so funny because I made that name up, and it wasn't really meant as a dig at Scientology. It was just a funny name, because all these robots will have like a letter and then whatever. And I just thought that was very, very funny. We had a robot named J-Lo later. I think there was one on the ship as well, or something like that. But no, I don't think we ever heard a word, or if DC got any letters from Scientology, they didn't tell us.
And then here's another one that I like. A. Cheng asks, and this would be interesting. Any chance we'd get a Black Label Justice League? And they're saying 3002, but I mean, I'd even like to see the Bwahaha guys treated in a Black Label way, and maybe not. And I forgive the comparison; it's the first thing that's coming to mind. But almost more of a National Lampoon, but not as dirty necessarily as National Lampoon guy.
Yeah,
but
don't give Keith free reign; it'll get dirty.
And it will be a very different book. Yeah, honestly, that doesn't appeal to me. I mean, I always say I would work with these guys at any time on anything, and I mean that. I mean, Millie the Model, Sergeant Fury, Space Cabbie. I don't care,
Space Cabbie,
because
please.
it's the way it's evolved over the years. It's less about it. It's the collaboration is what excites me, and then we take it and go from there. I always say we got together 10 years later for. I can't believe it's not the Justice League. And it wasn't until 10 years later that any of us kind of tumbled to the fact that what we did together was particularly good. Because Justice League, I mean, it was popular, but to me at the time, it was a fun gig. It was another gig. It went 5 years. It was over.
Wow.
And then we got together 10 years later, and it was all of a sudden, at least for me, I don't know how it was for you, Kevin, I was like, this is really good. We really need to keep doing this, because when we get together, we create something that we can't create individually.
We got an Eisner for that.
That's right, we did.
Wow.
Now, Kevin, when we were working on the book, Kevin, did you feel like we were like some really great team? Did you feel that this was like something hugely special, or was it just a fun gig for you?
Well, I didn't really have any frame of reference in
Right. Oh, that's true.
I've done. So
Right.
Is this how it always is? I don't know.
Right.
In retro, well, the thing is, I don't really, you and Keith interact significantly more than I interact with you guys. I get the script and then I go.
Right.
So it's tough to say. It's like, it's not, there really isn't as much interacting in the creative process for me.
But you know what's interesting is that on the original, years later, Keith and I interacted more on the original Justice League run. It was a machine. I would get Keith's plot. I wasn't talking to Keith on the phone all the time. I'd see him up at DC every couple of weeks. Andy'd take us out to lunch and we'd go pick up our checks. And Kevin would be chained to a desk up in Andy's office. And but it wasn't like people always think, oh, you're the writing team, so you must be on the phone or in the same room. No, I'd get the plot. I'd write what I wrote. I honestly, most of the time, didn't know what was going to be in the book until I got it, and would often have to call Andy up and say, so what's happening in this story? He would explain it, and off I'd go and write it. And I also, a lot of times I didn't even know who some of these characters were. One of the reasons why they had interesting interpretations sometimes is because I didn't know who they were, so I was just faking it. And I didn't have time to do like tons of research. I had never heard of Booster Gold, honest to God, until he turned up in the pages of Justice League. I had no idea who the character was. So I followed Keith's lead, and we build on that, and off we went.
How did Jurgens feel about what you guys did with Booster?
I have no idea. He hasn't come after any of us, and so I think it's okay. I mean,
sure
honestly,
my God,
it took the character and made him very, very popular.
Yeah,
and then he was able to return to that character after that and do great things with it. So
100%, man. No, I completely agree with that, and I'm sure that's why I almost wondered if it's like, hey, this is great, and if anything, maybe because it did re-energize the character in a lot of great ways. And look at all the amazing things people have been able to do with him since. And also, Guy Gardner. There's a great opportunity because really he was the third string Lantern, it seemed, behind Hal and John. So that's kind of neat and a great opportunity to just make him, the jerk that he was with that Mo Howard haircut and that Mo Howard attitude, frankly. Was there, I mean, honestly, again, as writer and designer, was there a Three Stooges vibe in Guy?
Well, when did he had that haircut before we got him? What didn't he?
I didn't give him that haircut.
So I think maybe
Black Canary costume. I didn't make up that. I didn't make up the Guy Gardner hair or anything like that. I was a new kid. I was just handed stuff and say, "Oh yes, they'll do whatever you want."
I understand.
Yeah. So again, it's just I vaguely knew who Guy Gardner was, but I was just following Keith's lead. And that's why I'll always give Keith, in our collaboration, I'll give him 55%, just because he had to face the blank page. So I never had to worry about facing the blank page. Even if what I wrote, the great thing about dialogue, especially in a free collaboration like I have with Keith, I could write a whole different story on top of the original story. His plot will still be under there, and I could add all these other elements that aren't even in there. I mean, years later when we did I Can't Believe It's Not the Justice League, and there was this whole plot line with Ralph and Sue, and Ralph thinking Sue was pregnant and all that. Those kind of things were all just added. Or we had Manga Con, Keith threw in Manga Con, and he was this big kind of Galactus-y guy. So I decided to do like a Stan Lee satire. And there was just this kind of random robots who I turned into Elron, And then the flip side of that is sometimes I'd get the plot and there was so much great Keith stuff in it, I didn't have to do much of anything, and I felt guilty cashing the check. I still cashed it, but I felt guilty.
Wow, this is it. I'm reading again. You'll forgive me some of the chat. And I didn't start reading comics until 2014 and was seeing direct references to this run. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what I was going to say, guys. Seriously, you think of things like Netflix, Next Wave, and some of the other, attempts at superhero humor and stuff. God, Jason Aaron did it with the X-Men when Wolverine was running the mutant school, and I think had a lot of humor in there. And just prior to what you guys all did, I don't really remember that level of characterization happening in comics, and maybe it was just part of the zeitgeist of the 80s. And that, if you could speak to that at all in terms of, again, just it was in the air, I suppose.
The 80s, looking back, you don't know it when you're in the middle of it. The 80s was an incredible time. I'm always amazed that there was a period where I was writing Kraven's Last Hunt and Justice League at the same time,
Yes.
Completely different stories, and Moonshadow and Blood and all these different things that were each one, because there was a lot of space. We were given a lot of creative space, not just with creator-owned stuff, but on these books with established characters. So there was just a lot of creativity in the air and a lot of freedom on mainstream books, to do what we did with Justice League, to do what I did with Kraven. it was a great time. But you know, when you're in the middle of it, you just living your life and doing your gig, and then you look back and go, wow, that was incredible.
Agreed. Kevin, you had no pushback, obviously, from obviously Andy understood what you guys were doing, so I would imagine they were cool with what you were putting out there as far as the art.
Yeah, they kept me on. Yeah, they didn't fire me, so
we didn't fire him. He abandoned us.
Yeah, honestly, Kevin, was it a personality? Like, just like, hey, creative groups, they're like rock bands, any sort of collaboration.
I'm not as time has proven in the last 30 years, I'm not a monthly penciler. So just the monthly thing was just not, I'm not wired for that.
Understood. Yeah.
He would come back periodically and he'd do lots of covers, right? He did a lot of covers, I think, after that stuff.
Yeah.
And then we had the fun of getting back together, for those 2 Justice League miniseries and Defenders, and it was great.
And
Metalman was great.
Yes, absolutely. And am I correct, Kevin? You did not do for Boom Planetary Brigade, which had Keith and Mark. Am I correct?
That was the Hero Squared and Planetary Brigade. No, Kevin didn't do that. Considering what the page rates were for artists, Kevin couldn't possibly have done that. He did do a cover for us, though. He did a great cover.
And truly, Kevin, I'm always happy. And when we do have conventions again, I love the fact that you have created different versions of a lot of your classic covers and moments with other groups of characters or other characters getting punched. And that's outstanding, man. I mean, I love that you've done that. That's great.
I that #1 cover to death. And I'm going to keep milking it to death. If I have to be stuck with a layout, I'm very happy that that's the one, because that's like right up my alley in terms of it's all people and there's no backgrounds.
Well, and no lie, man, that's like the Sgt. Pepper cover of comics, because it truly is.
That's a great way to put it.
It's so iconic, and it was so different. And then, of course, then you had the subsequent companion cover with the bigger Justice League and stuff, all like looking up and like, what are you looking at, kind of basically.
Then we did the Justice League Antarctica one where they were facing the wrong way.
I really do have to put together like a sketchbook or something of like every different iteration of that cover, because I've done a shitload. Am I allowed to curse?
You're absolutely allowed to curse, by all means, man.
Quite a bit of commissions of different iterations of that cover.
I believe it, man. That's fantastic. And again, it's just emblematic of the tone of that book. It really and it truly, again, as a reader, it was like, what the hell is this? And I mean, I was always a Justice League fan, but we knew we were going to get something different with this book. And reading in Amazing Heroes, the previews for it and stuff, and the other comic magazines of the time, it was really an exciting time, man. Oh, this is funny.
I didn't even feel like I was writing the Justice League. I wrote this book that happened to be called Justice League, but it had nothing to do with the Justice League it wasn't until I wrote for the Justice League Unlimited TV show that I finally got to write the Justice League,
Wow, that's true. And all right, now I got to ask, because that I don't think I've ever seen the full 90s TV movie that was kind of really inspired by.
It's out there on the internet. It's out there.
Yeah.
David Ogden Stiers, Charles Winchester from MASH was the Martian Manhunter, eating way too many Oreos, frankly, but kind of in its own way, almost fitting. And yeah, it seemed to want to do the attitude that you guys did. And again, no disrespect to anybody making movies or television or whatever, but the magic wasn't there.
I don't think people hadn't yet figured out how to do this stuff yet. Go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was going to say we could disrespect them a little.
Now, I do want to say, because I remember there was some other guys, and it wasn't these guys. Keith and I holed up at DC for a couple of days with these TV writers who were writing a TV movie. I think it was a TV movie. And they were developing a pretty good script, as I recall, but I have no idea whatever happened to it, or I don't even remember who those guys were. But we sat down and went over their script and talked to them and everything. And I didn't see that particular movie till years later when it showed up online. Yeah.
Here's an interesting comment. I think one of the most iconic moments of Kevin at the JLI is that silence sequence between Guy Gardner and Mr. Miracle after the invasion tie-ins. Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's it is interesting. It's just weird. It's just weird what sticks after 30 years. Like what, because you're just sitting there drawing that page. Like I would love to know where exactly I was sitting when I drew the one. I actually was probably sitting next to Helfer's desk, but when I drew the one punch thing, I never in a million years imagined that 30 years later I'd still be talking about that one panel.
Right.
That just amazes me what connects with people and what doesn't. Because when I'm drawing it, I'm not sitting there saying this is going to be legendary. You just never know. And and I think I personally consider it very fortunate that a lot of people way more talented than I am never had an opportunity to be involved in a project that hit people in the right spot, for so many people. I just consider myself fortunate that, I'm not a.
No, but he's right. I mean, I think about this over and over with Justice League, because people, you go to conventions, and I'd say a third of what I sign is probably Justice League. And it's not just old fans, it's people that are just discovering it now. Yeah. And it's an amazing thing, I just want to go back to what you were saying about that little sequence, the post-invasion sequence, if it's the one I'm thinking of, because what Kevin would do, especially as you evolved, and he wouldn't necessarily follow Keith's breakdowns the way Keith had them. He would evolve the sequence to get more reactions in there. So there might be a bit of dialogue back and forth, and Kevin then might add 2 or 3 panels of reaction before the next line came, which added so much to what was being done. He was in a lot of ways, directing the film, So here's the rat-a-tat dialogue, and he's thinking, well, I think that we need to have Guy kind of do this first, or do this, and then comes the kicker. So that's a great skill, and not everybody can do that.
But getting back to what you were just saying about like new generations, I am continually amazed when I go to conventions and I see like 15-year-old girls dressed up as Blue Beetle and Booster.
Yes.
You weren't even born when we were doing this.
I know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
There's so many Beatles and Boosters that I run into at these conventions. And there are a lot of them are girls, it's true.
On the one punch moment, Kevin, was there ever a thought, because I remember when JLA Avengers came out with Perez and Kurt Busiek, and Cap and Batman kind of size each other up and are like, all right, listen, obviously we're both great combatants. Let's just talk and not even fight. And a lot of people were disappointed. Was there ever a consideration of a real choreographed fight between Batman and Guy Gardner? Or was it always...
ask Keith if he ever shows up.
All right.
He's been under my table the whole time. Let me ask him.
I don't want to hear any details.
He doesn't want to talk. He won't come out. He's got a little bowl under there, and he's very concerned.
I got to be honest, man. When you guys got Keith to agree to come on, I'm like, is this going to happen? Because he's.
Come on, did we?
It's all right. The great mystery.
Well, the good news is we're doing fine, so it's all right. Let's see. I'm looking other possible things. Let's see here. I wish that JLA Avengers would have been re-released. Oh, that's it. Yeah, me too, man. That was a great run. Has nothing to do with the guys right now. But
legalities.
Oh, here we go. Now, Len, the Englishman in San Diego, he's got a good point here. People talk about how funny the book was, and it was funny. But my gods, there was some real dark steel under the humor. That's what got me hooked. The Gray Man. Yeah, the Gray Man. Absolutely chilling.
Yeah.
Well, you like, you look at, I don't know, a show like MASH, or I think those early 70s sitcoms, All in the Family, where they would be hysterically funny one moment, and then they could spin it around into tragedy in the next moment. And it was really important to us to periodically make sure that it wasn't all just laughs, that you could then, which would then shock the readers even more, because they would be really, really comfortable with the humor, and then some tragic thing would happen. Or was it I Can't Believe It's Not the Justice League, where Ice was trapped in hell, I think? There was that great sequence.
Yeah.
Not funny, and that's important. Max getting shot. There were a lot of things like that. Blue Beetle went insane and tried to assassinate somebody. I don't remember who. But it was always that balance. It wasn't just the laughs. And again, the laughs weren't there just for the jokes. The laughs were there to illuminate the characters. And
humor is a great way to connect people or an audience with a character and relate to them, so that when you do put them through tough times later, they're more emotionally invested.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you guys? Bat Freeze asks, and I've seen a couple other people ask this question as well. Certainly, people play with these same characters you guys did now, decades later. And do you care about what people do with the characters you spend a lot of time working on? And they give the example of Max Lord.
I'll start. You go into this knowing that you don't own any of this.
Right.
They're not our characters. They're DC's characters, and we're just temporary custodians of them. And then they will move on. The only time I was ever bothered was when they had Maxwell Lord kill Blue Beetle, because we were doing the second Justice League miniseries.
Right.
We were still working on that as that came out. So it was like, so essentially that book said everything that we had been doing for years was a lie. That Max was not the character that we had been portraying him. He's actually been something else. Again, I don't own the character. We don't own the character, so we can't say anything. But that to me was like, maybe have him get taken over by an alien, become evil, fine. But to say that everything we've been doing all along was not true, that was, I don't know.
There was a period at DC where it seemed like they just wanted to kind of throw out everything that we did. But kind of what Kevin's saying is true. We didn't, when we started on that book, they were somebody else's characters. So somebody else was complaining about what we did, I'm sure. So that's just the nature of the beast in comics. And those stories I always felt exist in their own universe anyway. In fact, when Keith and I did Justice League 3000, that was our idea, was this is a completely separate universe from the DC universe. That, this is our universe, and they're just stories. So enjoy the stories. You can go back at any point and read those stories and enjoy those stories, and read the other stories about that other Maxwell Lord and whatever, Ultimately, you hope that it's a good story and people can return to it and enjoy it.
You know what I think it should be? Because I don't know how many Earths there are in the DC multiverse, but every Earth should be a different writer's.
Right, you said that before. Yeah, I agree.
There's Earth Frank Miller. There's Earth John Byrne. There's Earth Brian Bendis. So that continuity is consistent on that Earth and has nothing to do with the other Earths.
I know that Mark has flirted with a lot of creator-owned stuff. Kevin, have you wanted to do any creator-owned projects?
Oh yeah.
Are they still coming then? Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. I'm working on one now.
Great.
It's a cross between Ray Harryhausen and Chuck Jones.
Fun.
It's about the Joe Bluth of Mount Olympus. So it's not a heavy drama.
Clearly.
But I'm having a blast doing it, and I've been sitting on creator-owned ideas for like decades, and I just turned 60, and it's like, if I have to start doing these things now, or I'm never going to do them.
I totally understand, man. Absolutely. Here they go. Bat Freeze, give Maguire and DeMatteis their own DeMatteis, excuse me. Mark,
I accept both.
15 years later, I'm still doing it, Mark. I apologize.
Don't worry about it.
But that's all right. But yeah, I'd like to see both of you get your own Earth. That would be amazing. That's
the comics. Just give us our own Earth, right?
well, much like Booster and Beetle having their island. What was the name of the island?
Cooey. Don't ask me where I came up with that from. It was just like, I don't know. I got to name this island. This is what it's going to be called.
Or how about Bwahaha, to do an extended laugh like that?
And Keith and I, to this day, which we love, is neither one of us knows who came up with that. My memory was that was in Keith's plot in one place, and I just thought that was the funniest thing. So I did what I do and just kept repeating it. And he swears that he saw it in my script first, and then he started doing it. So who knows? It became a mind meld at a certain point. We couldn't tell who came up with what.
The truth is I came up with it.
What?
I said the truth is I came up with it.
Attaboy, Kev, absolutely.
All the great ideas that we had came from Kevin, and the reason he left the book is that we were very jealous of his genius. And we forced him off.
And again, you guys have produced incredible other non-humor books like this. So, is this a compliment that this run is so beloved and remembered, and we're all like, gee, will you do more? Because we really do love it when you guys come back and do another. In fact, someone had asked if the current regime or even DiDio had said to you guys, hey, let's do another, humor book.
No, they never came to us. They didn't. That's just
no, we were like 3 or 4 years ago. We were trying to get a 30th anniversary one shot.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Wow.
And it was going to be. I mean, we were just like batting ideas back and forth. It was going to be the characters 30 years older, like Rush. Guy Gardner would be like a Rush Limbaugh. Booster and Beetle would be like doing conventions.
Right. Selling autographs to make a living.
Fire was 30 years older, but I stayed the same age.
Right. I forgot about that, and we pitched it, and nobody.
Yeah.
That's amazing because, man, especially it's so funny right now what they were going to do with 5G that is now morphed into Future State, this event that's coming at the beginning of next year. One of the subjects we're going to be covering on Baltimore Comic-Con on a panel. Yeah, that's really amazing because you would think that absolutely would have dovetailed in that,
It all comes down to somebody's whim, somebody sitting behind a desk.
What'd you say, Kev?
I was saying it was just a one shot. We weren't looking for like a 6-issue mini. It's like a one shot. But I have been told from someone. I don't want to get gossipy, but I've been told from someone well informed that certain people don't think superheroes should be funny, which is why they really haven't gotten us to do anything more. That's what I've been told. I don't know.
But they keep reprinting it every 5 minutes, so I mean, obviously, it's profitable.
Oh, they're like,
it's consistent with things I've heard as well, so that's disappointing. But again, things have changed, so we'll see what the future holds. So I'm happy. Yeah. No, and honestly, guys, it's interesting because you mentioned a one shot. From a formatic standpoint, do you guys think? I mean, do you wonder what's going to happen to the monthly comic book? I almost wonder if DC and Marvel are considering digital first to replace the monthly paper issue, and then, does that impact what you guys think about?
For me, the thing with digital has less to do with what DC and Marvel are doing. It's more to do with what we as creators can do with our own work and making it easier to get it out in the world. I'm working on 3 or 4 different creator-owned things right now with different artists, and some of it will be, the idea is just to put it out digitally and screw the middleman, just get the work out there. So that's what's exciting to me about digital.
That's exactly it. That's the creator-owned thing I'm working on. Is my intention is just to sell it as an ebook. I made that decision after the Diamond shut down, and it's like, you know what? We got the internet here. Let me just try that. And what I'm liking about that is, number one, like you were saying about the middleman, I don't have to get the approval of an editor, of a publisher, of a distributor. I don't have to get, I can just do what I want to do. It's like doing a podcast as opposed to doing like a radio show.
That's right.
You don't have to get the approval of anyone else. You do what you want. And what I'm enjoying about it is I'm working on it. It's like, this needs another moment. I'm going to add another page.
Right.
And you do that because there's no, there's no limitation in terms of how long a particular book should be.
I agree with everything you're saying, guys. And truly, it's been part of the conversation, not just with what's been happening at both DC and Marvel, but like you said, with the Diamond shutdown too. And it's clear that creators like this freedom. Is crowdfunding something you guys are considering with your?
That's one of the projects that I'm working on. Probably early next year, we're going to do a Kickstarter for. I've never done it. We're going to try it and see what's what. Yeah.
I'm going to do what I'm going to do is I'm drawing the first issue, then I'm going to put it out there as an ebook, sell it as an ebook, and hopefully it'll make enough money that it can finance me into while I'm making the second one.
Yeah, it's great. I think because of COVID, a lot of us are thinking in the same way, and I think there's going to be a lot of amazing work next year because we're all sort of going off into our corners to do the passion projects that we want to do.
And my friend, there will be Marvel or DC or any of this,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. Where is it? Comic Pop. Yes, I'm honestly surprised Marvel never approached this dream team to make a JL-inspired West Coast Adventures or something. Well, they did, as we were talking about earlier.
Defenders instead.
Yeah. So
Right?
how was that? Like, was there ever talk to do?
Wait, what'd you say, Kevin?
Where we were offered West Coast Avengers, or wasn't it something like that? But we did instead.
I don't remember. I have no idea. I just remember, the way Keith called me up and said, "Let's do Defenders." I said, "Okay," and that's all I remember about it. Yeah. And we were going to do another Defenders, and I don't remember what happened after that or why we didn't do it. There was talk about doing.
Probably read the one we did.
That's what I.
And they still use my Dormammu design for the video games.
Really?
Wow.
Wow.
Oh man, we gotta get you Chicken's lawyer and make something happen with that, Kevin. If they really did rip that off, come on.
I don't get anything from Maxwell Lord.
You don't get
that. No one got it. No one's gotten back to me about that yet.
Wow. Yeah,
Well, let's talk about this separately, but
I understand. No. But we were wondering if there was a response to the Defenders run to suggest other Marvel projects, because that was. I mean, again, we all of us that were reading JLI and everything, we loved it. So
yeah, no, there was never, also Keith was, I think, after that exclusive to DC, so we couldn't have done anything as a trio for Marvel.
I would kill for the three of us to do Fantastic Four.
We all agree on that.
That would make sense.
Fantastic Four, you look at the old Lee Kirby Fantastic Four, and it was great, cosmic adventure, but there was a lot of humor in that book and a lot of stuff for us to build on. I would set it in that era too and just have fun with it.
Yeah.
This is interesting. Is it true that Maxwell Lord was originally based, at least visually, on Sam Neill? Were there any actors, or was it Sam Neill? Was that your inspiration?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That's great. I'm a big fan. I loved The Dish, that movie he made about Australia's part in the Apollo project. I thought was just a terrific Sam Neill movie, mentioning Sam Neill. And I can see him being Max Lord. That's cool. That's interesting. Was there any, you'll forgive me, was there any Trumpian sort of 80s Trumpian thing with Max Lord?
Well, we discussed this on Twitter, me and Mark. I always thought of him. Well, I always thought of him as a cross between Donald Trump and Bill Murray.
Interesting.
In that he was,
I love that mix. I love that mix.
A charming con man, but still a con man. But this was before.
But charming,
right,
and intelligent.
Bill Murray
and he had a heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Bill Murray part. Absolutely, man. That's fantastic. Yeah. Jesus. All right, I'm looking at the time. We should wrap up soon. I do want to give you guys an opportunity to talk about what you're currently working on. Mark, we're loving all the animation stuff you're doing, but I also know that you're doing a writer's seminar, which, who better to learn from than Mark?
The Deathstroke movie is out now. Superman Red Sun came out in the spring. Batman Death in the Family has 2 shorts that I wrote, Death and Adam Strange. In November, I've been doing this workshop on and off for years, Imagination 101, and I've wanted to take it online. And now, of course, I have no choice but to take it online. So in November, we're doing it it's 10 hours over the course of 2 weekends. And it's going to be great. It's looking at the art and craft of writing, the practical, the metaphysical, every aspect. So if anyone's interested, they can go to comixplex.com, comixplex.com, and try to keep it small, 10 or 12 people at most. So it's going to be a really fun, intimate couple of weeks, couple of weekends. And as I said, I'm also working on like 3 or 4 different creator-owned books right now, and just had a Star Trek thing that came out at IDW, so it's been busy.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk Star Trek in the next couple of weeks, Mark. Yeah. Absolutely. Kevin, what do you got coming up?
Just what I said, the creator-owned thing I'm working on.
Okay.
Going back and forth between commissions and working on that.
I'm really glad you're doing that, man, because seriously, I mean, I'm in my mid-50s, and I know that it's not a question of not being able to do it anymore, but just being aware that the clock's running, and it's like, hey, if you want to do this stuff, get them done. I'm with you. I'm totally with you. So that's terrific. Truly, guys, congratulations. I'm glad that this run is still remembered as fondly as it is, and of course it is, because again, it was It was a magic bunch of years. And I'm sorry that JD Salinger couldn't join us to give his point of view, but that's okay. No,
I'm not surprised.
If we would have bet on this, we would have come out with a lot of money, right?
This is true. This is true. Jesus. Well, Mark, I look forward to our next conversation on Word Balloon.
Same here, John.
Kevin, I hope you'll consider coming on a solo chat with me on Word Balloon sometime.
Okay, sure.
That'd be great, man.
And Kevin will talk about the Maxwell Lord thing.
Okay.
That's awesome. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We got other great panels coming tonight. Everybody sit tight. In just a few minutes, I believe next is, am I right? Isn't it another two other great creators talking? Yeah, Bendis and Jerry Conway in conversation. I was really happy that both of them agreed to do this. I am looking forward to it. It's just minutes away. But everybody, great questions in the chat. Thank you very much. And I hope you're enjoying Baltimore Comic-Con. This is just the beginning, kids. We've got lots more programming tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday. It's going to be incredible. But thanks a lot for watching. And guys, thank you very much for
thanks,
being part
John.
of this.
Thank you, John.
See you, Kevin.